I'm Chris Cuomo, and we start with a tale of two campaign trails. Both of the main candidates were in their hometowns today, but for very different reasons. President Biden was in Scranton, Pennsylvania, making the case for what the future could hold, while former President Donald Trump was in court defending his past. So, how is each managing to handle their biggest challenges? We now know what those challenges are. I'm going to lay them out for you with one of the best campaign brains ever. Then, we have another advance in the case of those two Kansas moms. Police confirmed today their bodies were found buried on the farm of one of the four people who were arrested, including the paternal grandmother of the kids caught in this deadly custody dispute. So the question is, why? Why did this get so bad? We have an exclusive interview tonight with the lawyer of the murdered mother, Victoria Butler, what he knows about the beef between the mom and the grandma, including the grandmother's role in this kooky extremist group, God's Misfits. What are they? A cult? A gang? Is it relevant? We've got a reporter live on the ground with details on the group. Then, the biggest problem that no one in the establishment wants to deal with. Fentanyl. You know what it is now. I'm sure you're hearing about it wherever you live. It is the most deadly common concern we have. Last year, more than 100,000 of us were killed by this drug. And yet, for all the talk about who's fighting for you, nothing is being done on what arguably matters most. Now, today, what we have on the screen is this explosive, I'm making air quotes, explosive new bipartisan House panel report came out. Explosive. China funding and fueling fentanyl in America. The media is buzzing. Oh, this is new and bipartisan. You know what it is? BS. And I will talk to lawmakers on both sides who are coming on together because they know it's BS and they know it's time to act. A year ago, they promised that they were going to do something in Congress, and they've done nothing a year later. We do not play the game at NewsNation. We expose it. And I want to have your thoughts on that tonight. 844-968-7720. In fact, let's put some exposing of the game on the menu as food for thought tonight. What do you say? A trifecta of bolos for your consideration. Bolo, be on the lookout. Troubling signs of what's okay these days. Number one, NPR suspending the guy who said the place is filled with lefties. You remember I had Yuri Berliner on here. He wrote that article in the Free Press. Now, NPR says he was suspended because he didn't seek approval for his work at other outlets as required by NPR's policy. But they have to know that this only looks like one thing, payback. How is this not an attempt at chilling free speech? Congress should hold a hearing on this. And there is an angle for them this time. You know, often people say that something's an issue of free speech, and it isn't, because the First Amendment only applies to what government can and cannot do, right? But in this case, NPR is publicly funded, in part. So, could Congress hold them to account? Maybe. Look, the point is we have to stop silencing what we don't like to hear, especially in places that are supposed to be about being open to all ideas like the media and higher education. When I say higher education, I'm looking at you, USC. You hear that they silenced their valedictorian? Kid kills themselves for years to get this honor? I'll give you a hint. Take a look at her. Why? They're worried what may happen if her remarks include pro-Palestinian ideas. Forget about the fact that it's not the Jewish kids and their allies who have been the violent ones on campus. As with NPR, all you do by shutting this kid down is empower their message by making it worth censoring, which means it must be dangerous, which means they don't want you to hear it, and then it's only going to drive interest in it. America has to be about the best idea winning in an unlimited marketplace of ideas. We cannot play scared when it comes to speech. And that takes me to the last bolo. This point of picking what is and is not okay that is almost always just a function of advantage. This one I call hypocrisy, like hypo-crazy, like crazy hypocrisy. I'm working on it. So, MSNBC didn't want former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel, right? Why? She lied about the last elections. Too much. Can't have these liars. It's all they do is lie around Trump. Lying liars who lie. Now, they handled it horribly, made themselves look like a lefty clubhouse. But the real problem is the hypocrisy, to the extent of being crazy. Hypocrisy. Keep saying it, it'll sound better. McDaniel's bad. Okay. But Michael Cohen is good. The bag man for Trump, who engineered the allegedly felonious deal that Trump is on trial for right now. Oh, but he did his time. Oh, okay. His time for what? Well, he explains it by saying that the lie was about numbers. He claimed to have spoken to Trump 3 times about the failed Trump Tower Moscow real estate project, when the true answer was 10 times, he now says. And he only lied to Congress for the benefit of Trump. Now, this is a very well-practiced and time-worn tactic, okay? This is, enough time has gone by where I'm now going to rewrite what was going on so that I can be more acceptable to my new friends on the left. Look, I'm absolutely about forgiveness. I am not somebody to judge. I don't believe any of us is. We do way too much of it. But let's be honest. MSNBC is looking the other way because they like that he's a reformed Trumper that keeps kicking Trump's ass. That's why it's okay. It doesn't matter that this man lied more ways, more times for Trump, for his own aggrandizement, for whatever, than anyone else I know around Trump. And I know, okay? I lived it with this guy. I dealt with him firsthand, probably more than anyone at MSNBC, because he hated those people during the campaign. In fact, he lied to me and secretly recorded me, just like he did Trump, after taking my phone so I couldn't record it. He's a piece of work, okay? So he's okay because you like what this known liar now says. Come on. Come on. You gotta be better than that, or at least less obvious. And that's what NewsNation is all about. No more left and right. Let's just be reasonable, okay? And that takes us to the lead story. Today was the tale of the 2 candidates. One's on trial, the other one hit the trail. Just hours ago, Biden campaigned in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania, called for raising taxes on billionaires. Who's going to fight with that, right? Especially in Scranton. Meanwhile, Trump was stuck in a New York City courtroom and only able to vent his frustration to reporters. Take a listen.
No billionaire should pay a lower tax rate than a teacher, a nurse, a sanitation worker. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America.
Every legal pundit, every legal scholar said this trial is a disgrace. I should be right now in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in many other states, North Carolina, Georgia, campaigning.
Let's be clear. This case is weak. But Trump did it, okay? And he should own it. The idea that he never does anything wrong is how he got spun up into all this in the first place, okay? Thinking he can just get away with whatever he does. He did this. Do I think it's a felony? No. I think it's a misdemeanor case. And I don't even know that it had anything to do with the campaign. We'll see if they can prove it. Now, Biden, going after billionaires, great. Explain why they don't pay taxes. Explain it. Because these are the people who are filling your pockets and filling Trump's pockets and filling everybody's pockets. That's how it goes. You're not going to just get that by changing the tax code. You got to change the graft system, man. You want to be honest with people, be honest. Now, what can we expect in this next 6 weeks, or so, right? Because this is going to be hot and heavy. You got challenges for each of these guys. There are groups of voters, different groups of voters, that each has to have. And neither is doing well enough with those groups. Now, let's discuss with one of the best minds in the business. I've been going to school on this man's ruminations for decades. Democratic strategist James Carville. It's good to see you, handsome. Ruminations.
Well, very good. There you go. I like that. I like the compliment introduction. I like being called handsome. Best all of you.
You are good looking. One of the best shaped heads in the business. So, James,
that's it.
we'll start with Biden. Biden needs independence. A growing number of people in this society who is sick of the parties and wants to hear more about solutions and reasonableness. Right. Why is he struggling? He beat Trump, I think, by about a dozen or so. Now he's supposedly trailing by 5. What's that about, and what's the fix?
Well, first of all, Democrats do need independence. Secondly, they're getting them. We have not lost an election since Dobbs. And most of this is, I would prefer the term weakly aligned, but if you want to say independence, I'm not going to get into nomenclature argument here. And I don't think, and I think the Biden people know this, he's not going to be able to replicate his 2020 coalition. But the good news is he's doing better with not loosely aligned, and he's also doing better with over 65. So it's not all grim news on the Biden front at all. It's a
I'm
challenging...
saying it is. I'm saying if the numbers are what they say, that he's back, he's a little back of Trump with independence. What's the fix for him? Yeah, why is that, and what does he do about it?
Well, first of all, independents don't like Dobbs. They don't like authoritarian rule over people's bodies. They don't like the Arizona territorial legislation or the Comstock Act. And by the way, independents believe that people that make over $500,000 a year ought to pay more in taxes, like 78% of them. So that's another real good issue for him. But he's got to drive these home and draw contrast with Trump. And supposedly he's starting to do that in Scranton and Lackawanna County. Got a lot of friends there. But yes, he does need to do well with independence. The good news is Democrats have been doing very well with independence since Dobbs.
I'll just stick to me. I don't talk about reproductive rights enough as a main voting issue in the upcoming election. I guess I'm looking at the polls that have immigration and the economy kind of prohibitively in front of it. But when you look at Trump's soft spots, women who respect reproductive rights and their allies who respect the same seems to be a real problem for him, enough that he's trying to spin a new message for them.
Totally, and he is, and now Rick Scott's trying to flop around. And one thing to remember, Chris, is that on the question of reproductive rights or women's health care, abortion, whatever you call it, there is not much difference among women, not much racial difference, not much generational difference, and not much even income or education difference. It's pretty universally disliked by females around, again, a lot of males too, not to single it out, but yes, and it's costing them elections left and right. I mean, you know that New York 3rd District as well as anybody. 8 points? Mm-hmm. That's a canary in something. I don't know if it's a coal mine or what, but dead canary came. It's down there somewhere, promise you.
So with Biden's challenge, he can message his way into that group. Here's what I'll do for you. Here's what you guys are worried about as independents. Here's what we're going to do along those lines. If I were he, and I'm going to talk about this later in the show, I don't get why he's not acting on the border unilaterally. I don't get why he isn't dovetailing that with a national effort on fentanyl. You can't find a family in America that isn't scared to death about this. We're all buying Narcan kits and little strips for our kids. It's the craziest, most kind of participatory drug conversation I've ever had. I never thought I would talk to my oldest about drugs the way I am now because of fentanyl. So he can do that. What can Trump do that won't totally isolate the right fringe when talking about reproductive rights? What can he say to them?
Okay, let's back up on the border issue. If you remember, Senator Langford and Senator Murphy negotiated something that the border agents were all endorsed, everybody endorsed it, and Trump just unilaterally pulled the plug on it. So let's be clear that there was issues, there were things to address this that Trump blew up in the Republican Party. On fentanyl, I'd rather take raw sewage than fentanyl, to tell you the truth, and I think it is a terrible issue. I was watching documentaries and reading about how this stuff, and it is god awful. And you know, you're right to bring people's attention to this, and who it hurts are, you know, people who don't have much hope in their lives, are more adversely affected by this than anything else. But just remember that Senator Langford and Senator Murphy worked out something that everybody thought was a good deal on the border. So I think the president, my sense is that he's going to take some unilateral action here before long. I think it's kind of imminent, to tell you the truth.
Well, that's a great prediction. I hope you're right about that. Not because I give, you know, that I put money on one guy over the other, but the border issue is a real deal. And we'll see if he can do something about it. I hope you're right, James. I always hope you're right, because I have the audience relying on you. Last word to you.
Look, it's going to be a really close election. There's a lot of stuff, and I'll tell you the big word, and you should cover this: insurance. If you look at insurance costs across the country, individual homeowners, auto, you look at corporate people, these utility companies. I spoke to California utility people last night, and they're getting hammered with insurance costs, because of climate, obviously. But watch this issue. It's particularly acute in Florida, or places where I am in South Louisiana, Mississippi, but it's all up and down the Atlantic Ocean. And my prediction is Chris Cuomo is going to be talking a lot more about insurance rates in the coming months than he ever thought he would.
You are correct. We have started touching on it, but not enough. I agree that climate is what they are blaming it on in terms of catastrophic pricing, but they're also pigs. And they have too much sway over the politicians that are leaving them alone. But I'm with you, James. You're right.
I think Biden should blame them, too. Yeah. But insurance is going to be a huge issue. Huge coming. Yes, sir.
Yeah. He should start slicing some bacon.
Okay.
And I know exactly what pig to start with. James Carville, thank you very much. I appreciate you as always.
Yes, sir. You bet.
Let's take a break.
Thank you.
4 minutes, 5 seconds. Sure. Now, remember this. When you listen to James, let's say you're center right. Oh, I don't like his arguments. But you need to understand what you think you're against. There's too much siloed thinking. James is a smart guy. He knows the tactics of the Democratic Party and what they're going to message. Be open. Listen. America is losing more people to fentanyl than in the 2 world wars combined. How? Well, it is the best metaphor for the madness of the inaction of the two-party game. They just put out a new report, bipartisan. China's behind it. No kidding. What are they going to do? More importantly, what will they admit to you about why they haven't done anything? Members from both sides. Whoever sees that. Next. Hypocrisy. Corinne, who makes me look like this, she pronounced it the right way. That's what it is. Crazy hypocrisy. And fentanyl is right up there at the top of the list. We know it's killing us, and we're doing nothing. The number one issue for this presidential campaign should be that common concern. Shouldn't it be? Who's not in favor of that? More than 1 million of us have died of overdoses since 1999. The numbers just keep going. It's getting stronger and stronger as it gets cheaper and easier to make. Today, a House committee released a bipartisan report that confirmed what they already knew, that China is still behind the fentanyl epidemic in the U.S., fueling it and funding it. The report says China is allowing companies to produce, sell, and ship the ingredients to make fentanyl to drug cartels in Mexico, who then make the drug and send it to our streets. And guess what? It's now being made in the United States also. How do I know? Because none of this is new. Why isn't our government waging an all-out war against a lethal epidemic that's killing not just adults? It's not just about the junkies. It's about anyone, okay? You don't have to use drugs to die of fentanyl. Ask the first responders that have to handle it. Ask the families who lost children, even babies. You remember the babies in the daycare center in the Bronx? What do you think? They were like doing lines at nap time? They were poisoned by fentanyl just through contact. That 9-month-old kid died from being exposed to fentanyl in an Airbnb. We know how real it is. The disgrace is that nothing's being done. And I have to tell you, I applaud the two guys you're about to meet. Okay, you got the ranking member, Democrat Raj Krishnamurthy, okay, and Republican Carlos Jimenez. First of all, I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you for coming on together. Thank you for letting my audience see that not everybody down there is just trying to figure out how to kill the guy on the other side. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you. Now, and especially when you knew that I was going to come at you about the inaction that's going on down there. So, Representative Krishnamurthy, I'll start with you. All three of us know this is not a headline for you guys down there that China is still doing this because they can get away with it. A year ago, Congress said, we're pulling out all the stops on fentanyl. Nothing happened since then until today. Why, Roger?
I don't know. I think that the most likely scenario is that it just wasn't high enough of a priority. And what we're screaming out, people like Carlos and me and others, and you should have been at this hearing, it was full of families with pictures of their loved ones who had been poisoned by fentanyl, is that there's a real sense of urgency with our committee because we see it so clearly what's happening with the Chinese Communist Party. Let me just point out two statistics respectfully. One is that 97% of illicit fentanyl in the U.S. comes from China. There were 0 reported deaths related to fentanyl in China, but 110,000 fentanyl-related deaths in the U.S. at the same time, which shows you two things. One, the Chinese know exactly how to police drug trafficking and fentanyl in China, and they execute people who deal in fentanyl in China. But when it comes to fentanyl exported to the U.S., they either turn a blind eye or worse. And we have some specific policy recommendations that we're going to push very hard to deal with that particular issue.
I want to hear about that, but let's talk about why it hasn't happened. I have two theories, Congressman Jimenez. The first one is that the parties don't see advantage over the other side in this issue. And if the Democrats can't beat the Republicans over the head, or if the Republicans can't beat the Democrats over the head with an issue, then they move on to something else. Is that too cynical?
Yeah, I think it is. I definitely think it is. Look, I've been on this for at least 2 years. When I also serve on Homeland Security, and we had the FBI Director Wray there, and I asked him, hey, we've got a group of terrorists that are shipping a drug that's killing 200 to 300 people a day into the United States. Look, 9/11, we had about 2,000 people, died, and maybe 3,000 people died in 9/11. 19 people more perpetrated that. Yeah. We waged war for 15 years, 6,000 miles away. We got people killing 70, 80,000, 90,000 people a year here in the United States. They're right across the border. What are we doing about it? And why don't we label them as terrorists? Well, because we just can't label them as terrorists. Look, today, the one thing I found, startling. I knew that China was the producer. I've known that for a long time, and that we need to take action against China. But what's worse about it, Chris, is that they're not just producing it and turning a blind eye. They are incentivizing it. They incentivize companies to produce drugs and chemicals that are illegal in their country, just as long as they export it. So China is killing us with a weapon of mass destruction, not only people in the United States, but across the West. They are the largest cartel in the world, drug cartel in the world, and we need to take some action against China. And look, people say, well, hey, what do you want to do? I want to decouple from China like yesterday. And it's going to hurt, but you know what? We need to stop funding the instrument of our destruction, and that's what China is. And this is part of a larger strategy by them to destabilize the West, to corrupt the West, to kill our young people, and they've been doing it for years. And now this report shows not only are they doing it, they're doing it for profit, and they're incentivizing people to do things that are illegal in their country. That's amazing. Our administration, Congress needs to act, the administration needs to act, and they need to act right now because we're failing as a government to protect our people. We have thousands of families that are suffering right now, and mourning the death of their loved ones. Tomorrow, we're going to have 200 to 300 more families in the same boat, and the day after will be 200 or 300 more as this continues to go on and on and on. And so, look, it's something that it's bipartisan in nature. I hope that today's hearing brings it to light, and the urgency that this government, our government, the U.S. government, combined, Democrat, Republican, have to act to protect the people of the United States.
So let's end on this. First of all, you guys have an open invitation. Whenever you're doing anything about this or anything that you want to do isn't getting moved on, the answer is yes. You can come on together. You can come on apart. I don't care. You can call in, whatever you want. Raj, let me ask you something. In the past, most of the moves, if there's been anything articulated, has been aimed at Mexico. And we can have the argument about why it's legally tricky to call them terrorists. But you never have military involved in any of the advisory panels, and China is never the target. Is that going to change this time with your recommendations?
Yes, I think so. Can I just point to one policy recommendation, which is an absolute no-brainer, and I think Carlos will agree we absolutely have to do this, which is it turns out there are tens of thousands of companies in China that do, quote unquote, legitimate business, taking advantage of the American market. And then they have a side hustle of exporting illegal fentanyl precursors to the American market at the same time. We should absolutely sanction the hell out of them until they stop this nonsense. The one leverage point that we have, Chris, that we have not used is access to our market. We have the world's greatest economy. They want access to it. If they want access to it, they can't do this crap anymore.
I love it. I love that you guys are nodding your heads about the same policy ideas. The American people are starved of it, and they are desperate for it. So thank you. Congressman Jimenez, Congressman Krishnamurthy, the invitation is open. Please do something about this. It's killing.
Can I make one comment? Can I make one comment?
Last word to you.
One comment. I'd like to make one comment. Okay, I'd like to make one comment. You know, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities that we could hold China, if we're really serious about it, as a state sponsor of terrorism, because they are creating a weapon of mass destruction that's killing hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And so, you know, I think they'd take note if we started to do that. Of course, it's going to be painful here in the United States and around the world because, you know, when you do that, there are sanctions that come along with it. But you know what? They are killing hundreds of thousands of people around the world using this weapon of mass destruction against us. It's time that they pay a price.
Hey, the different kinds of drugs, Congressman. We've gotten addicted to cheap labor. We've gotten addicted to cheap goods. Much of it made in China, and sometimes, you know, you want to break the cycle, you got to break the use. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate you. I wish you good luck in your efforts going forward. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Up next, tonight we learned that the two bodies are the missing Kansas moms, okay? They've been positively identified. Veronica Butler, Jillian Kelly. 4 people were arrested, including the kid's paternal grandmother in this ugly custody suit. We have an exclusive with Veronica Butler. She's the mom of those kids, her lawyer, and we got to get into this God's misfits thing. Was there some kind of weird cult that had something to do with this? Paternal grandmother in Oklahoma. Now, the paternal grandmother and her boyfriend and another couple were all arrested. The question becomes, why? Well, how could a custody battle turn deadly? Joining us exclusively is Oklahoma attorney Garrett Oates, who had recently been taken on to represent Veronica Butler in the custody battle. Now, in court documents, we learned that Veronica had accused Tiffany Adams, this grandmother, of essentially kidnapping her kids. A lot of you keep asking me, what is this habeas corpus? That is Latin. You have the body. It is a federal demand to produce somebody, in this case, the children. Counsel, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Chris. I'm glad to be here with you, but I'm also deeply saddened, and no one especially in this position. This is not where I want to be for sure. So, but thank you for having me.
Understood. And I know how rare this is, a situation where you lose a client, let alone under these circumstances. But how have you been able to make sense of the motivation, even if it's madness in this? Do you think it was about this group, the misfits, or do you think this is about a grandmother with no more sense of morality who was willing to kill to keep the kids?
You know, Chris, I can't speculate about the group. I was unaware of anything to do with this sovereign citizen group that you guys have been reporting on prior to law enforcement talking about that. Certainly, there's been some information about them in the probable cause affidavits that have been released. But beyond that, I had absolutely no knowledge, had never heard of the group before law enforcement releasing that information. So to say that, you know, I have any information as to whether or not that group was the motivation, I don't know that. What I do know is that Veronica was a lovely lady. She was what you want in a client. Absolutely. She was organized, diligent. She made my job a heck of a lot easier. She brought me 4 expanda files of information the first time I met her. That was all stickied and tallied, ready to go for me. She was extremely respectful. Just like I say, everything you want in a client and a person. She absolutely loved her children, and that was the goal, was absolutely to get her more time and then to be on the path to regain custody. That was our plan for sure.
Did Veronica have any kind of sense of what she was up against in this dispute?
Again, with regards to the group, I can't speculate as to that. And so, and Veronica had never mentioned the group to me either. So I'm at least of the belief
just the
that
grandmother.
Just the grandmother. Certainly, when Veronica first met with me, there was the normal custody battle type information being exchanged where both parties, or from Veronica's perspective, right? I mean, both parties are really warring with each other, especially in a custody battle that had been going on for years, right? But beyond that, what really struck me was the information that you guys have reported on. Tiffany Adams' own son, Wrangler Rickman, had put some posts on social media about threats that his own mother had made against him. That was what really raised my eyebrows, firstly, in speaking with Veronica, and what I thought kind of made this a little bit different than a normal custody case. And certainly, like I say, raised my eyebrows, gave me some pretty serious cause for concern. But I think Veronica knew that obviously it was a very extremely serious situation. But to know that somebody is capable of doing something and then that they would do something, I mean, are two very different things.
Her sense or your sense about what was driving the grandmother's interest in the custody?
Oh, well, I mean, I certainly had many conversations with Veronica, both in person and I corresponded with her almost every day, which is not, I wouldn't say that's per usual for all of my custody cases at all. But it was really a keep me posted on every single thing because it was an ongoing dilemma. Like I say, I mean, it was going on for years. There were issues. I know you guys have reported on the filing that I filed as recent as March 20th, which I think really encapsulated the snapshot of how the situation was going in the custody battle as recent as March 20th, which was 10 days before the 30th when, they were first declared missing. And so, it's, I think I share the same sentiment that Veronica did with regards to the controversy, the struggle that was going on in this case. And I was only retained in September of last year. So it's not as if I was in the case from the very beginning. But from my review of the court file, I mean, this was a very contentious matter from the very get-go. I mean, there were numerous hearings. The filing takes quite a while to scroll through the bottom, to the bottom. Right. And so it was a very serious matter, very very contentious matter from the very beginning.
Well, to believe the authorities' suspicions at this point, it was serious enough that the grandmother was willing to kill the mother of the kids that she supposedly loves so much. So we'll see what sense we can make of it. And counsel, anything we can do to help you along the way or what you believe needs to be addressed, we're a call away. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you for having me.
All right, Garrett Oates, thank you very much, and I'm sorry for your loss. Joining us now on the ground in Oklahoma is NewsNation senior correspondent Brian Enton. Now, he had an exclusive look at the area where the bodies were found. Brian, thank you for being there. What story do the environs tell? And then I want to talk to you about motivations.
Yeah, you mentioned, Chris, we went over to the area where the mom's bodies were found. It's about 8.5 miles from where the car was left. Very rural area. I spoke to the owner of the land. He was in tears, crying. I mean, he knew the victims. And he says that he leased the land to suspect Todd Cullum and was totally shocked when police showed up, started digging, and then found the bodies. Another new element for you, Chris. We were at another property associated with the suspects and saw police towing away a big white trailer. Why is that important? Because witnesses tell us that they saw a white trailer around the time of the murders in the area where the women were murdered. The thought is perhaps the bodies were transferred in that trailer. And then the last thing, you mentioned the group God's Misfits, an anti-government group. Apparently all of the suspects were in this group. I actually spoke to the municipal judge here in town. He was walking by, asked him to get in the car with me. He knows the suspect, Tad. He knows a little about the group. Listen to what he told me.
Never even heard of it until this come up. Knew zero, nothing about it.
And what have you learned?
To me, and what I've heard, and I can't say this for fact, what I've heard, it's kind of like a cult. A lot of cults use God as their background to justify what they're doing. To me, that's what it sounds like.
Are they anti-government?
Very.
And to just tell you how small town this is, Chris, that judge is very good friends with the suspect, Tad Cullum. They are also business associates. He was at Tad Cullum's house when police came and raided the place. They put a shotgun in the judge's face when they took away Tad Cullum. So really, it just shows everybody knows everybody here. The suspects are powerful. They own thousands of acres of land. And this is a web that continues to become untangled here, Chris.
Wild. And Brian, I love that choice of venue for the interview. Please get into my car. Let's interview this. Let's do a TV interview. That
Makes
was very
comfortable.
That was very
just get in the
enterprising.
passenger seat. Yeah.
Hey, listen. That's why you are the man. You get it done and you get information that really helps us understand what is a truly bizarre situation. Brian Enton, thank you very much. Appreciate you. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Up next, there's a lot of food for thought. What if you digest it? 844-968-7720. Let's get after it. All right. Who do you have, Dusty?
Okay, we are going to go first to John from Medford, New Jersey.
John, what's your question?
Hey, Chris, I love you, respect you. You're the best guy I know. But what I'm getting at is right now, like last night, you really bashed Trump pretty bad, called him a scumbag, pretty much straight out. And
no, I didn't.
Yeah, you pretty much did. Yeah, you did. As a person, I get that. But we got Bill Clintons. We have people out there that are we have, for God's sakes, we have some bad people out there. I mean, as persons. But I think that Donald Trump isn't a bad runner of the government. And that's just my opinion.
I totally get the distinction. I get the distinction.
Right.
I just don't agree. And I do not mean to come off like I'm judging the guy as a person. That's for you to do, okay? I'm just laying out what we know to be true about the guy. My frustration with people who support Trump and say it's about the policies, I agree with you about wanting those policies. If you want those policies, that's fine. You would just get them with anybody. And the idea that he effectively ran the government, I mean, come on. We've never seen people kicked out of an administration as they were with him. But look, I'm giving him a fair shot. You hear what I'm saying. I call balls and strikes. This litigation in New York, I think, is total BS. I think it's bad for us that it's even happening. So I'm not a guy who's just looking to gratuitously bash him, okay? But I get how you're thinking, John, but still, I would never use the kind of language that you're talking about, certainly not on TV, to describe anybody, let alone a former president. But I hear you. I'm here to call balls and strikes. I make no secret of my problem for Trump. Just to show you how crazy our times are. You know how many people think I'm a Trump supporter? Crazy. Next.
Okay, one more. Josh from New York.
Josh, what's your question?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I just wanted to ask you, do you think that Joe Biden will be able to make it through a second term at all due to his age and his cognitive decline?
I have no clue. And I'm not saying that the way I say it about myself or you or anybody else right there, but for the grace, who knows what tomorrow brings or if we even get it, right? But this is different. There's a real concern. There's a real question. And there's a real problem, okay? Biden was supposed to be a one-term guy. If he were going to swap that to a second term, the party and he should have thought very seriously about who the running mate is, because the running mate matters more than usual because of the concern you just expressed. God willing, he lives to be 100. But you don't know, and doubt creates problems in politics. You're not wrong to be thinking about it, and it's for him and his defenders to make you feel okay with it if they want your vote. Next.
Oh, geez. Okay, let's go. Ron, real quick, Ron. 20 seconds.
The fentanyl problem, the fentanyl problem could be solved when the problem hits Capitol Hill and people in their sphere start dying of overdoses. When that fentanyl hits home, we'll slow it down, especially on Capitol Hill.
Look, all pain is personal. I hear you. God forbid. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm happy to have had Jimenez. You know how rare that is to have a Democrat and a Republican on, let alone talking about trying to fix something, right? I mean, that gets a hallelujah for me. Now, the problem is they've done diddly, and they've known this for a long time. So we'll see if these guys, they're acting in good faith. I believe that. I know them both. But let's see if they can get anything done. The one thing I disagree with that we heard there is, one, that they're going to muscle up against China, as Krishnamurti was saying, and that Jimenez was saying, I don't think this is about parties seeking advantage. I disagree. I think it is. And I think that's one of the reasons they've done nothing about fentanyl. Up next, final thought.